Hello everyone, this is the HappyModel Mantis85, and something's not right. But of course that's not the only damage. This thing completely broke, and this is the reason why I'm not following my typical format and going through all the specs. Don't worry about the cut, it's superficial. It'll be better in a day or two. So not only do we have the nylon standoffs, those all broke, and we lost the bell off the motor. You can see here that the motor took a strike apparently, and it bent, so that's not good. And we lost the motor bell. I couldn't find it, although I looked. This is the FlySky version, which you can get it where it comes with a radio, and that makes things super easy if you're just beginning in FPV. But I'm starting it this way because I think this is a model that you should probably avoid. It's not that it's a bad model, it's just the design of the frame leads me to believe that this is going to happen to more people. I didn't think I had a necessarily spectacular crash. You might disagree with that. This weighs less than 50 grams. And I did bump into the chimney. I wasn't going fast, in my opinion, and the bell flew off. Now, maybe that's just a one-off, and that doesn't happen very often. I just, a coalescence of bad timing and bad angle of attack on that crash. But because of that damage and the fact that this frame is, in my opinion, it's got a flaw in the design. Expecting nylon standoffs to support your frame is a bad idea. They could have very easily remedied this by just putting another standoff, a metal standoff like they did in the front, right here in the back where they already have a hole. And there's a hole back here. So maybe if you get the plug-and-play version where you add your own receiver, you'll get a standoff there and it would be better, but I didn't find any pictures indicating that. It does also come with a battery. It's a 400 milliamp 2S. We have JSTs. They do have a nice thick wire on it, but this battery isn't very good. Matter of fact, even when it's freshly charged, if you try to do any flips and rolls, you're going to hear the buzzer go off, or you're going to see the OSD on screen give you low battery indicators. It's not a very good battery. But it will get you in the air if you start out. But again, I think you should avoid this unit because I see this as a trainer. You know, it's got a CMOS camera. It's small. It's light. It's something that you're wanting to take and you're wanting to do probably close proximity. You're not looking to outright fly fast forward. Maybe you're looking to fly inside a warehouse or something of that nature, maybe a large office. But I do think that the ET100 is better suited in all those particular cases. If you haven't seen the review on this, I'll put it right up here. Short story is this one is very, very tough, and that's where this one is not. I think they fly very similarly. This one does have the OSD on it, so that is a kind of a feature addition, and it does come with a radio if you choose to buy it that way, which I don't believe you can get one like that. You can't get this with a radio. You can get it with a receiver, but not with a radio. The guards on this or in my case, I found them to be nearly indestructible. I couldn't break them. I ran it into a tree 4 or 5 times. I banged it all around the playground, and not a problem. So we can roll that flight footage. I'll show you. I have one good flight, or a decent flight, I should say. I only flew this about 7 times before I had this crash, and then that kind of ended my review phase. I'll show you one clean flight, and I'll show you the crash. But let's take a look at that now. You can see the tune on this isn't great. You know, as I'm flying around, you do see some prop wash, and I really hadn't gotten all that far into working on the tune very much, but you know, that's the way it goes sometimes. It is a pretty good close proximity flyer. It's got a super wide angle lens, and you can see I've got the camera tilted up about as far as I could go, and you do see part of the top plate and the standoffs in that view. You also see that we have a bit of fisheye how it presents itself to us. We're going to pop up, and here's where our fateful crash is. We're going to hit that chimney. As much as I try to steer away, a glance, and that's the end of that. Here's a better flight. I do think, I have to admit, that it probably does fly a little bit easier outdoors, especially in breezes, than the ET100 does. But I still believe that it's more of a trainer. It's not one you're going to probably be interested if you've already got several quads and maybe you've got, you know, hundreds of flights under your belt already. Usually we go for the real small ones because it's an inexpensive way of getting into the market, and we want to get started in FPV, and we don't want to spend a lot of money in case FPV is not for us, or we just can't seem to adapt to this particular hobby very well. But I do some close proximity, as you've already seen, and I kind of whiz around the yard a little bit. I do take a little bit different route than I normally do with these little guys because I can fly them next to the house and I don't get too concerned. Oh, little bonk there off that tree, but we're still good shape. The reason why I don't fly back there much is I never know when a kid is going to pop out of the house. On this particular case, the kids are all gone, so I wasn't really worried about it. But I don't go back there very often. I am flying with the tune that comes on it, which is okay. It's not great. Like I said, I didn't get around to tuning it because I just wanted to explore what the factory did. And here's a little punch out without a crash. You can see we can't really throw this thing over the house, and we shouldn't expect that. And we get quite a bit of prop wash as we come down there. But we shouldn't expect to be able to throw this thing around. It only weighs about 50 grams. You just don't have enough weight or inertia to really throw this thing around. But that's not what I see this as for. I see this as a starter or beginner quad, and something in the brushless arena. I do think it's a little bit curious that they chose to stiffen up the bottom plate with metal pieces. I think if they were to choose to do that again, I would have to recommend they just go with thicker carbon. But I do think that 2mm thick bottom plate would be just fine. I can't see where we have enough weight or we're going to create enough speed or velocity to where a 2mm bottom plate wouldn't live up to it. I do think these motors are probably made out of 60-65 aluminum, and therefore they're a little bit softer than many of their current iteration or higher performance motors are. And they probably should include a little bit more motor protection, possibly, with this particular machine. If they had some fingers coming off the ends of the motors around the frame, that would be good. You could also probably fashion some 3D printed motor guards if you have a 3D printer. That shouldn't be too much of an issue if you have a printer. If you don't have a printer and you have one of these and you're worried about suffering from something like I did, you can go to Thingiverse or various print sites and request that they be printed and pay for it as well. If I can find some motor guards that are appropriate for this size of motor, I will link them in the description below. It shouldn't be too hard if I forget to do that. Pretty much any 1100 series motor prop guard should work because there's standard 4-hole mounting pattern there on the bottom, which we use over and over and over again. Get some printed in your favorite color and you should be all set. Hopefully that protects your motors from taking any damage and coming apart like mine did. But a fairly long flight time. You can see they did modify the battery voltage alarm, and they've taken that down quite a bit. And I'm not upset by that by any stretch, because usually on these smaller 2S models, you can put that down a little bit lower, and the batteries will still recover. You can see there, as I went around that corner, it went down to 3.2, and then it went up to 3.5. Well, that's the end of her flight. If you have any comments, questions, suggestions, or otherwise, please leave that in the section down below. I appreciate your time, and thanks for watching.